The Tim Crowley Show. The Tim Crowley Show. The Tim Crowley Show.
Welcome back into the Tim Crowley Show. Happy May to everyone turning into this episode. We're recording on May 4th, so for the Star Wars fans that are interested, May the 4th be with you. I'm your host, Tim Crowley. Thanks so much for tuning back in. We have plenty to talk about in the sports world, particularly around the New England area, as we start this episode off. It's been a busy week for the Boston Red Sox. They finished their first week under interim manager Chad Tracy. We have Tommy Castle, who covered him extensively with the Worcester Red Sox, the Woo Sox, stopping by to talk about him as well. And then also on the Patriots side, while there's a ton of Patriots stuff going on, and may even have some more Patriots news at the start of June, wanted to talk about the latest induction into the Patriots Hall of Fame with Rob Gronkowski joining that established group and doing so in this order that it feels like the last few years of the 2010s Patriots really starting to get their places. Obviously, the big stadium event for Tom Brady's induction in 2024, Julian Edelman was last fall, and now Rob Gronkowski will also be joining that class later this year as well. So I want to dive right into the Red Sox conversation at first. It's been a tough start to the season that we've obviously documented. We talked last week about the firing of Alex Cora, but wanted to dive into who Chad Tracy is, because obviously he's going to be the interim manager for a while. We'll see if the interim tag stays for the course of the full season, if Chad Tracy gets the full season the rest of the way for the Red Sox. But it's important for Red Sox fans to know who the man is that's taking over for Alex Cora and the voice that's leading the clubhouse for the foreseeable future. Now I want to throw over to our interview with Tommy Castle, who was with me over the weekend in Boston covering Tracy's first home series against the Houston Astros at Fenway Park. Plenty to talk about and some cool Chad Tracy stories as well. So let's dive right in. Tommy Castle joins the show talking Chad Tracy's Red Sox here on the Tim Crowley Show. Continuing on here on the Tim Crowley Show as we look ahead to what the Red Sox have in store in the month of May, obviously continuing on with interim manager Chad Tracy. And really, in my mind, nobody better to talk to about the former Woo Sox manager, the man who's there every day at Polar Park, Tommy Castle from the Worcester Telegram Gazette. It's the TC special on this show, the way we like to have it. But Tommy, I appreciate you taking some time.
Yeah, TC, rein in. Let's do this. We need Tom Karen to pop on to make this a trifecta.
That's the goal at some point is to host the TC extravaganza to the fullest level. But let's talk some Chad Tracy for a little bit. Obviously, he's been in New York for a number of years now and doing a great job down in Worcester. During his managerial tenure, which has now earned him a spot in the Woo Sox Hall of Fame that'll be coming up later this summer, what has he meant to the organization and starting to really play a big role in player development at that level?
Yeah, well, he joined in 2021 at the end of that year, took over for Billy McMillan, who was fired after 1 year with the Woo Sox. So he's brought stability to the AAA club and to player development in Worcester ever since they've really been in Worcester from Pawtucket. And Trace is kind of a hybrid mix of old school and new school manager, and he's really brought a steady, like I said, presence to Polar Park and to AAA Worcester. And you can hear it from some of the players I talked to this past week, like Marcelo Meyer and Roman Anthony. Some of those younger guys really talked highly about Trace and what he brings to now Boston from an experience in Worcester.
I think this week is so cool to look at in the sense of, obviously, it's a great opportunity for him. I'm sure it's not coming the way he wanted with the firing of Alex Cora and several members of that coaching staff, but you've obviously gotten to talk to him a little bit. We were both there Friday covering his Fenway debut, but this stretches back to the previous weekend in Baltimore. What did you make of what an absolute whirlwind of this week was for him in terms of rushing up to Baltimore to get ready to manage a game and then trying to get all of the stuff from his Worcester office to Fenway? And what did you make of this kind of whole roller coaster week for him that I'm sure is going to be one that once the dust settles at some point, it will be a cool one for him to look back on?
Yeah, I think you said it right, TC. It's like you never want promotion at the expense of someone else's demise or firing, like Alex Cora. And because the Tracy family holds Alex Cora in such high regard from back the days, I think you just recently did a piece on Jim Tracy. Chad's dad was a long-time manager in the big leagues. Actually managed Alex Cora in LA with the Dodgers. Actually, Chad Tracy on my podcast had talked about when he was in college at Pepperdine, had developed a relationship with Alex Cora. His dad had loved Alex Cora as a player, and Trace even played in AAA for a cup of coffee with Alex Cora, I believe, in the Rangers organization. So their relationship goes back so much. So when Trace was pulled from the dugout in the fourth inning of a AAA game and never returned with his cup of coffee and his stopwatch on the bench, never to be collected, it was a whirlwind of a day for him. he was kind of told out of the blue that he was going to become the manager of the Red Sox, and obviously a well-deserved promotion for him. So putting aside the fact that someone he respected and had a good working relationship with Alex Cora was fired, obviously a happy moment for Chad Tracy to finally get his call up. I mean, he's a longtime player and now a longtime manager who had only gotten to AAA, and now he's, like you said, we covered his Fenway Park debut on Friday. So it was a whirlwind. Like TC, we didn't notice right away that sometimes they go to the bathroom or something happens where they need to get on a phone call. It's real quick. So by the end of the game, we were like, "Where's Chad Tracy?" And some people were saying, "Yeah, Trace hasn't been here for a couple innings." So I went down from the press box all the way to the field where the photographers are, and just kind of was like looking in. I had a player ask me what's going on. I said, "What's going on with him?" So it was a weird Saturday. Definitely the first day where we dealt with a non-player call-up with a manager like that. So and then for the first time ever, TC, I know you and I have waited outside in the hallways before at Pollard Park to talk to Chad Tracy or a couple players after a game. First time ever, the locker room was closed per request from Chad Tracy because he didn't want anyone coming in. He just kind of wanted to control the narrative a little bit, which I understand. We caught up with him quickly before he left, and then obviously got some video of him hopping in a XL Uber on the way to the airport. But it was a wild day at Pollard Park for Chad Tracy and all of us. So it was a whirlwind for sure.
You're right. It is different because, again, there's been so many kind of like, not in the sense of like a TMZ video, but that we do have those like street videos around Pollard Park over the last few years of some of the bigger guys getting called up, like Roman a year ago. But again, that's different in certainly in the way to cover it. We talked a little bit about, again, what he's meant as a manager and what he's meant to, the system and player development. Obviously, when you're there every day, you get to know the man pretty well. And that was something that stood out after the win for the Red Sox on Friday, where some of the guys that have been in Boston for a few years but still have connections to Tracy are kind of caught in between here. You think of a guy like Jaron Duran, who obviously had a very long tenured relationship with Alex Cora, but also had a lot of time with Chad Tracy before his promotion when he had been up and down in the majors and up and down in AAA for a few years. And after the game Friday, when asked about it, and it was really one of the first times he really addressed the managerial situation, Jaron had talked about saying to the media, I hope people get to know who Chad Tracy is as a person because he's an amazing human being. You've gotten to know him pretty well the last few years in terms of your coverage every day. What should people know about the person that Chad Tracy is in beyond what he's impacting on the fields for the Red Sox?
Right. I've enjoyed this bit of the Chad Sox, and Chad kind of doesn't have a good connotation with it, unfortunately. The name Chad, kind of boring, kind of like a Karen, if you will. But Chad Tracy, and obviously we call him Trace, is a baseball lifer. He loves the game. He grew up, like we said, with his father being a longtime manager for the Rockies, Pirates, and the Dodgers. Chad Tracy grew up in clubhouses and locker rooms and baseball. First off, he's a baseball lifer. I did a story my first year here on kind of behind the manager is a person. They are people as much as we're having fun with the Chad Sox and interim status and who's next for the Red Sox manager. Well, Chad should get a shake at it. We'll see how the season goes, but as per the person, he's a family man. He's from lives in Ohio. He's got 2 kids and a wife, and they are staples at Pollard Park, or they were staples at Pollard Park for every summer. Trace liked to balance, and those locker rooms you've been around it, Tim, at Pollard Park are kind of, it's a different vibe at Pollard than other baseball locker rooms in a good way, right? Like, it's pretty open.
Totally.
They're playing Golden Tee. They're playing Mortal Kombat nowadays. They're playing ping pong. Like, the air in there is light. And in other locker rooms, it can be a little heavy. And I think that's a reflection of the manager. And it's not like it's too loose. It's not like they're not trying to win and develop is the biggest thing in AAA. Like, winning and losing is kind of a byproduct of the baseball. But development is key. And these guys are either veterans or rookies or first-timers trying to all get up to Boston. And that can be tough. So the environment needs to be a mix between seriousness and a time to have fun or relax. Like, baseball's hard enough. It's a game of failure, right? So Trace, like I said, I think before, is a good mix between old school and then new school in the sense of he trusts analytics, he looks at the numbers, and he uses them to his advantage or as much as he can. I think the Woo Sox have walked the most this year than any year he's been here. So they've obviously put an emphasis on not swinging at pitches out of the zone, being okay to strike out looking if it's not the pitch you want. So, but I digress in a little baseball there because Chad Tracy, the person, you dealt with us, Tim. When we're in this office, 7, 8 of us, 10 of us sometimes, 2 of us sometimes at a AAA game, given the day, he takes 15 minutes to 20 minutes every day and answers every one of our questions. Some of the questions are from left field about absolutely nothing to do with baseball, and some of them are, really actually putting his feet to the fire, telling us to give an answer about, when's Peyton Tolley going up, what's happening with Roman Anthony's back, why did Roman Anthony ride in the golf cart to avoid getting autographs last year in AAA? Like, sometimes these questions, and he's going to deal with harder questions in Boston, no doubt, than questions he's getting from me at Polar Park. But we did ask all the questions that need to be asked each day, and Chad Tracy took 15 minutes each day before every game to talk with us, and he would give out well thought out responses. And I think that's the man right there, because he could easily heard the manager before Chad Tracy only talked to the media twice all year, and then Chad Tracy will talk to the media every single day, answer questions every day, no questions asked. So he was great to deal with as a manager, as a reporter, put on a reporter hat, but also just a good guy. So I think people in Boston, as much as it is more important about the wins and losses every day and that roller coaster of, well, we like Chad Tracy when he's winning, but if he's not winning, do we like Chad Tracy? So I get that pressure in Boston definitely will pop up, but I think Red Sox fans, will get to know Chad Tracy a little bit and get to like him and see that he is a pretty good up-and-coming baseball mind and deserves to be a manager in the big leagues.
I like that you touched within that about the clubhouse culture in Worcester and how it is pretty light. And again, it like you mentioned, it's a different style of kind of what you're approaching the day in terms of making sure you're getting guys into the right spots for their development, for pipeline guys and for guys that are younger and need to play different positions, which he talked about over the weekend at Fenway. But that is interesting to think of, especially over the weekend, for what people may or may not have made of some of Wilson Contreras' comments about the clubhouse in Boston and the dugout, saying that it felt like after Alex Cora was gone, there was like kind of this like everyone kind of let loose for a minute. And, whether or not that was more to talk about the predecessor or the current interim is up for discussion, and it certainly has been across social media. But that is, above anything else, a testament to Chad Tracy for kind of what culture he wants to kind of build in his clubhouses, which has been big. You talked about this earlier when we were starting to go through the history of kind of what the Tracy baseball family is like. And you touched on his dad, Jim, who obviously managed 11 seasons in the big leagues. And I did write a piece, as a couple other people have, about it's always important to have these guys that have a baseball background or grew up in a clubhouse, and they kind of just feel that the game slows down for them. I think it's a super interesting thing that it's not just, okay, here's a guy whose dad was a big league manager. It was also a dad who took over in season for a team. A little bit different. Jim Tracy was the bench coach for the Rockies in 2009, and obviously Chad coming up here from AAA. I'm not saying that this is likely, and I made sure to write that when we told the story, but it is fascinating that when Jim Tracy took over the Rockies, as you've talked about this week too, they were 18-28 in 2009 when Jim took over, and they played at a 638 clip down the stretch, won 74 games, won 92 for the season, which is still a franchise record, and made the playoffs. I am not saying that is likely for the Red Sox, and especially after the last week, it certainly doesn't feel like it. But we'll play the hypothetical game here and have some fun with it. How cool would that be if we're looking in October and we're getting to tell the story of two different guys, a father-son duo, who have both taken over in season and gone to the playoffs with a roster that needed a turnaround at the time of it? Or maybe not the roster, but just a team in need of a turnaround.
Yeah, that'd be kind of full circle, right? That's a quote we get a lot. Is 17 years later, after his dad takes over as intern. I don't know if Jim Tracy was tabbed interim, but he obviously was the acting manager or whatever you want to call it for the Rockies. That was a good Rockies team in 2009. They were just coming off of a couple of runs. They obviously had the Red Sox World Series 2 years before. So let's not maybe get too ahead of ourselves. Roster construction, I think, is the biggest key here. A reason why. And I don't think any of us thought Alex Cora was going to be let go in April of this year, is because of some maybe offseason decisions with the roster. And then obviously this offense is struggling right now. And now we have some pitching injuries in Boston, too, to worry about. So I don't know if there's Morgan Magic or Tracy trouble coming along, along the way with these Red Sox, just because of, there's only so much a manager can do. He talked about yesterday, I think Sean McAdam had asked him post-game, are you going to change the lineup at all? And he's like, well, we got traffic. We have people on the bases. We just need to get that hit. And once you get that one hit, it snowballs into 2 hits. And this Red Sox team, you can tell, is just pressing to get that one big hit. And Jarren Duran provided a couple of them this weekend. Just the Red Sox couldn't, win a series with one big hit yesterday against the Astros. So I don't know if we have. It would be a fun story for I think a lot of us to cover if Chad Tracy takes over these Red Sox and they go on a bit of a run. And I think you'll see the roster stabilize a little bit soon with maybe a Sonny Gray coming back from injury. Garrett Crochet doesn't seem to be on the IL for too long, and then Ranger Suarez also seems to be a short stint if he goes on the IL at all. So once his pitching stabilizes and the weather gets a little warmer, I don't like to use weather as an excuse, and I don't think the Red Sox should either because their lineup is a little lacking a little thump. But once they start hitting the ball a little bit, get a little more comfortable, like you said, that the air, even the player said, the air in that clubhouse has lifted a little bit, and I can't help but think that Chad Tracy has a little bit to do with that. He doesn't know the veterans as much, like a Wilson Contreras, like a Sonny Gray. Like he only got to meet those guys in spring training. But if Wilson Contreras is saying that about Alex Cora in his first year here, I imagine that's not, if he's getting that sense in 1 month, I imagine that's been lingering for longer. We'll see. I think at the end of the day, they got to start hitting. And if they do start hitting, I think this could be a fun summer Chad. The spotlight squarely shines on him and the Red Sox now with the Bruins and Celtics. Well, Patriots are always in the spotlight recently. But, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I don't know if there's going to be a similar run like Jim Tracy in 2009, but it would be a fun story to watch and tell.
Well, I'm glad you alluded to that part, too, in the sense of this is when pressure starts to come around Fenway, right? Is when the winter teams are done in the postseason, which obviously, unfortunately for the Bruins and Celtics, is a little earlier for some than maybe others expected. And maybe there's that 1 or 2 day break that they'll get if the A.J. Brown trade or the worst kept secret in football does go through to the start of June. But there's pressure on them, and you're certainly right about that. And I'm interested to see what you talked about too, and the mix of being a really good voice for the young guys that he's had in Worcester, but also connecting to a lot of the externally added veterans that you mentioned as well. We wrap up with this too. Obviously, we've talked to you about your experience around him. Is there a Chad Tracy story on or off the field that stands out to you just from your time being around him the last few years in Worcester?
That's a loaded question, TC.
That's probably a long list too.
Trace is unapologetically himself. Like he is. That's a good one. I will tell you, Chad Tracy is not good at board games. They at the Tracy household, they'll keep track of all the board games they play in the off season, and I think it was last year, 2 years ago, I saw the marks on the names. I was shown a picture, and Chad Tracy was last in the household between his daughter, his son, and his wife. So while he's a good baseball guy, I don't think he's a good board game guy. So Trace he's all in on baseball though. He likes to fish. He has a good relationship with Jose David Flores, his new bench coach. Those two are amigos, as they call themselves, a lot. So interested to see how Trace personalizes himself a little bit, but I think he's really going to focus on the baseball. And we're going to keep any of those good anecdotes and stories kind of off the record for Trace. But he's a pretty straight and narrow guy and not good at board games.
Well, hopefully, again, the rest of the season is getting wins in Boston for him if the Red Sox do want to turn this around. And hopefully, the chess pieces he's playing with are within the bullpen and not board games to see if he can guide the Red Sox on a similar path that his dad did the Rockies. But Tommy, it's always great to have you on and chat with you. I'm sure we'll be back in Worcester soon, but people should absolutely be watching your podcast as well. I know you've had some big guests on. If you want to drop a Castle's Corner plug before you head out.
Yeah, we just brought in Brian Abraham. Unfortunately, it was before everything happened with the Red Sox. We saved his podcast to post after Peyton Tolley was called up. So we brought in Chad Tracy, Peyton Tolley, and Brian Abraham, and then a star pitcher from Bishop V and Brody Bamilla. And then we'll have another special guest this week. So yeah, give my Castle's Corner a little plug if you want to learn about some of the best baseball minds in around Worcester and Boston. So appreciate TC bringing me on and letting me plug my podcast too.
Tommy Castle, Worcester Telegram and Gazette. Had plenty of coverage coming up in Worcester. New era with Iggy Suarez as well. Tommy, thanks for the time.
Thanks, TC.
Big thanks to Tommy Castle for stopping by as we give the state of the Red Sox and what they'll look like under Chad Tracy as the month of May rolls on in this first full week of a new month. Pivot to the Patriots side now into the NFL world, and again, there's going to be legacies throughout the dynasty that will always live on, and I'm sure there's still plenty of Patriots we're going to see in Canton at some point, including Adam Vinatieri, who just got inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame that was announced at NFL Honors this year, and his name did come up recently as part of the Patriots Hall of Fame discussion. He was one of three finalists for this year's induction, with Rob Gronkowski as well as former fantastic left guard Logan Mankins. Eventually, Rob Gronkowski is the 2026 inductee into the Patriots Hall of Fame, a well-deserved honor. So first of all, congratulations to Rob Gronkowski on earning that red jacket that will be donned later this summer, probably maybe closer to the start of the season. But make no mistake about it, Adam Vinatieri will get in and is deserving of a red jacket. The same can be said for Logan Mankins. But the ultimate conversation is there was no way that Rob Gronkowski wasn't getting this the first year he was eligible. He was too important to what the Patriots build in what they like to call the Dynasty 2.0. He's the most dominant physical tight end we've ever seen. And while that conversation between him and Travis Kelce of, who ranks supreme at the top, I've never liked the conversation. I mean, obviously I've probably taken a Gronkowski side just because I thought he had a bigger impact on the game than Kelce does. But ultimately they played the tight end position very differently. I know they wore the same number. They're both, tall dudes that can make a lot of plays with the ball in their hands. But I never loved looking at the conversation that way just because I thought they played the position pretty differently. But for Gronkowski, obviously what he meant for Tom Brady in the second half of his career, being the most dynamic option, you can really make a case that he ever had. I did an article about this when I was still at NESN.com a few years ago, but where Tom Brady's best top 10 Patriots weapons ranked. And I did have Gronkowski number one, and it's more about tenure. Obviously, the 23 touchdown year with Randy Moss in 2007 was remarkable, and Randy Moss is one of the greatest offensive weapons we've ever seen in the National Football League. But I gave it to Gronk just in the sense of there was a longer tenure for him and Brady to work with. And obviously, they set records later that Mahomes and Kelce actually may have been in the conversation or passed recently about the all-time playoff quarterback to tight end touchdown combinations. Obviously, it was a big one for Brady and Gronk later when they had the 2 touchdowns against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. But Brady also had a multiple touchdown outing with Gronkowski in Super Bowl 52 against the Philadelphia Eagles. That was one of 4 times, actually, that Gronk went over the 100-yard mark in the postseason with the Patriots. And that's really where he was the most valuable for them down the stretch. There are certainly years where the Patriots did not have him and could have, maybe it's an even totally different story in the postseason if Gronkowski's healthy. Because you think about years, 2012 got hurt with the forearm injury against the Colts and it wasn't there towards the end of the playoffs. 2013 has the hit against the Browns with the knee injury and the ACL injury, is not there for the playoffs and the Patriots losing the AFC Championship. Had the back issue in 2016 and was not there for Super Bowl 51. Ultimately, the Patriots still got it done, so how much did it actually matter? But even with all those, what ifs if he wasn't hurt, it's not like he really left much behind to talk about in terms of what did he leave behind in his legacy, what was still out there for him to reach. He accomplished everything he could have wanted. Was a part of 4 Super Bowl winning teams, obviously, like we mentioned, didn't play in Super Bowl 51, but was the most dominant force in the on the offensive side of the football for long periods in the National Football League. He was obviously a big part of what the Patriots were able to do throughout the 2010s. You think of so many games that he just totally took over. The first year that come to mind, 2 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Opening night in 2015 has a trio of touchdowns. Him and Tom Brady were unstoppable driving down the field in Pittsburgh in 2017 in a game that eventually decided the number 1 seed in the AFC. He actually talked about that in his press conference announcing his induction in the Patriots Hall of Fame last week. He said that was probably his favorite non-Super Bowl game was that game against the Steelers in 17 and getting to just drive down the field and just be totally unstoppable as the Patriots took the lead. Obviously, that game maybe gets remembered sometimes for the Jesse James catch, no catch, and then the Deron Harmon interception later. But make no mistake about it, those are the games that define Rob Gronkowski's career, along with obviously the great postseason games he had. We mentioned over 100 yards 4 times in the postseason, was a real weapon when he was healthy for the Patriots. And I'll take a step away from obviously the Super Bowl ones. And he did have 3 Super Bowl reception touchdowns with the Patriots, 2 against the Eagles in Super Bowl 52, and obviously the one where he beat KJ Wright on a go ball in Super Bowl 49. In my opinion, the most important Patriots Super Bowl was getting that one back, and certainly my favorite game, I think, in terms of the Super Bowl era, is Super Bowl 49. But when I think of just the sheer physical dominance of Gronkowski, Gronk was on the receiving end of what, in my opinion, is my favorite Tom Brady throw of all time, and one of the better Tom Brady throws of all time that may not always get the love because it was in a loss. Go back to the 2015 AFC Championship game. Obviously, the Patriots going up against the Broncos in the AFC Championship for the second time in 3 years. It was the final installment of Brady Manning. That Denver defense was elite. They showed why that day against the greatest quarterback to ever play and made it hard on the Patriots all day long. But Gronk and Brady still found a way to start to get things done in the fourth quarter. And when I look back on that 4th and 10, right down the seam, through 2 defenders for Gronkowski, and then the touchdown that followed it a minute later, and then the fact that he was open on the 2-point conversion, they just couldn't get him the ball. That's, in my opinion, you can talk about the Steelers games, you can talk about some of the other games he took over. That moment with Gronkowski, the 4th and 10 catch, and then the touchdown over a defender in the end zone to even give the Patriots a chance to tie and go to overtime, that's the Rob Gronkowski that I think of, how dominant he was as a player. Obviously, the fun-loving side of him that was really on display with the fans and the media around New England over the years. But it's games like that are why there was no way that Rob Gronkowski wasn't getting a red jacket in his first year of eligibility for the Patriots Hall of Fame. He'll be celebrated later this year when they have that red jacket ceremony for him. We may even have a little bit more Rob Gronkowski content in the spirit of his Patriots Hall of Fame selection later this week. We'll be back in a moment on the Tim Crowley Show. That'll do it for this episode of the Tim Crowley Show. A big thanks on our Red Sox segment to Tommy Castle from the Worcester Telegram and Gazette stopping by. He will certainly love to have him back on the show at some point down the road, and a great week to talk about Rob Gronkowski's Patriots Hall of Fame induction as well. I'm your host, Tim Crowley. Plenty more content coming your way in the coming weeks. Thanks so much for watching this one, and we'll see you again soon.